Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. I am your host, Janet Sandberg. I am a mental health advocate and also I am a Reiki master teacher, channel, and intuitive life coach, helping people figure out who they are, why they're here, what's getting in their way, and how to move forward with clarity, confidence, ease, and grace. Today, I am joined by the wonderful Sarah Dawkins, all the way from Europe. I am based in the US, so we're working with a time difference today, but it has all gone well. Sarah, welcome so much. Welcome so much. Wow. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be with you.
Good. Why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Where do I start? I always wanted to be a nurse, and my mum was a nurse, and I wanted to help vulnerable people in their times of need. So I became a nurse, and I'll cut a long story short for the introduction. But basically, I went through a dark night of the soul, healed myself, changed a core belief that I needed doctors and pills to my body heals me, healed a long list of health problems, and came out the other end stepping away from nursing and going into health coaching to help others to do what I'd done and heal from the root cause of their health problems and turn their life around.
Amazing. I can't wait to hear the whole story. And then the other fun fact that I learned about you just before now is that you live in Spain. So we are both living in foreign countries, as it were.
Expats, yes.
Yes. Yes. So that is awesome and just brings a different perspective to life, I think, when you are able to live somewhere else for whatever the reason. But let's dive into your story.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Let's dive into that dark night of the soul. What was going on then?
So that was after I'd started my own healing journey. To backtrack a little bit, one of my nurse colleagues questioned my use of pharmaceuticals at home. So, of course, that was my life, just through that visor of doctors, hospitals, and pills. And that's all I knew about health and healing, because
Right.
my mum was a nurse. So when I started healing myself and living a different lifestyle at home, more natural, healthy, looking at, how I was healing the symptoms that I'd had, the diagnoses that I'd had, I was literally living two lives, one at home with natural healing and one at work with doctors and pills and interventions. And I was so conflicted in my mind because I'd only ever wanted to be a nurse. And once I'd qualified, I was Sarah the nurse. I aligned myself with my job. And a lot of us do that because we don't know who we are.
Yeah.
So when I started thinking about, I'm struggling to live these two lives, and I couldn't really bring in my home life into work life because it wasn't the done thing. And I started to get so conflicted. I started spiraling into depression, which just got deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where I had that dark night of the soul. I went through thinking, my family doesn't need me. I'm just bringing their lives, bringing misery into their lives. I'm not working. I am sat around at home all day. I'm crying all the time. And I just, one night I was listening, it was afternoon, one afternoon I was listening to my husband and daughter laughing in the lounge and I was ironing in the kitchen. I'm like, they clearly don't need me in their life. They've got this happy, joyful life. And I'm just bringing misery to it. And that led me to start thinking about all the ways. As a nurse, I knew a lot of ways to take my own life.
Sure.
But part of me was frightened. And part of me didn't want it to hurt myself or to hurt
Mm-hmm.
other people. So I couldn't jump in front of a train or onto a motorway in front of a bus or a car because it would hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
And all these thoughts were going through my mind. I can't take paracetamol or Tylenol, as it's called in the US, because it could take days to die. And then, if I changed my mind, I'd go into organ failure and die anyway. And I couldn't access any other like opioid, stronger drugs, other than steal them from work. And that wasn't going to
Right.
happen. And I wasn't even at work anyway. And I was just like, how can I do this? I don't want to slash my wrist because I'll make a mess, even if I sat in the bath and cut my wrists. I'm like, there'd just be so much mess to clean up. And
Mm-hmm.
all these thoughts were going through my head. How can I do it without making a mess, without hurting anybody else, without involving anybody else? But part of me was a coward too, because I didn't want to suffer. I didn't want to feel pain. I just wanted to be here and then gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, that's kind of the point, right? We want to end our own pain, so we just want to
Yeah.
just disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't know how to do that without
Mm-hmm.
any suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, the practicalities are a whole thing, and especially like you said, when you're concerned for your family and those you're going to leave behind and not wanting. It's like we don't want to be here because we're a burden, but then considering the ways we could end our lives, we don't want to burden them that way either, with the
Absolutely.
aftermath, and leave them, something to clean up, or, any of those
Yeah.
things. So yeah, I get it. And it's interesting to hear, just all of those, um, just all of those thoughts, the way the brain works, and, you know,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah, and it felt in a strange position as well, because I was like, well, what about this? Well, no, it'll leave a mess. Well, what about this? Well, no, because it might hurt somebody else. Well, what about this? Well, I might end up suffering and I don't want to. And while I was ironing, I was just having all these random thoughts, trying to process what would be the best way. And not long before I was having these thoughts, before I left work because I couldn't work, I was so deeply depressed. I'd heard of an anaesthetist that I worked with. His wife was very, very depressed, and she'd just gone up to, said she was going to bed, put a bag around her head, tied it, and
oh my
literally
gosh,
suffocated herself. And I'm like, no, because I'll probably
no.
fight that bag. And I'm just like, I just couldn't think of what would what would work for me, what would resonate, that wouldn't hurt, but that wouldn't leave a mess for my family.
Hmm. Yeah. So, and it's also interesting that all of this was happening while you were ironing. Um, because
Yeah.
it's so meditative. I used to love ironing. I used to work as an au pair, as a nanny. And so I was ironing, so it was in addition to my job. I took on all the little household chores, but I used to iron so much, and it was so meditative because it's a repetitive motion. You're, working on getting the wrinkles out. And when you do it often enough, there's like a method. You do it the same way all the time, right? So you don't even really have to think about it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, like your brain is just so free to wander. And I had another au pair friend at the time who always joked that she was going to write a book about all of those thoughts that she had while she was ironing, because it's like shower thoughts, right? Like you're
Yes.
relaxed and you're meditating and your brain just goes to all of these wild places.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Crazy
but
thoughts. And like you say, just so up and down. Yes and no. Yes and no.
yeah. Yeah. So what, you finished your ironing, and then what happened?
Um, I think I cooked dinner, and then went to bed early and just cried in bed. And my family were used to me crying.
Hmm.
And they just they kept reaching out, but I didn't really see it. because my life was so dark. I felt like I was in the bottom of a dark, deep abyss.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it felt, and I could kind of see them and hear them speaking and reaching out, but I just wasn't receptive to it. So I just kind of segregated myself from them and took myself to bed and cried in bed, and so that I tried to hide my crying. They obviously knew, but I tried to
Right.
hide it because I didn't want to burden them with it.
Mm-hmm.
I just went to bed, and the following morning I actually rang we have a counselling service at where I worked in the hospital, and I just rang and I said, yesterday I was thinking of how to end my life, and she said, come in right now. This was 9 o'clock in the morning, I think, after everybody had gone to work and school. And I remember just throwing a dress on, didn't wash, didn't brush my teeth, didn't even have a drink, literally went straight to her office. And as I was parked my car and walking across the car park, I noticed a man giving me a really strange look. But that was all I noticed.
Yeah.
Just very strange. I couldn't understand what he was looking at. I went in, and the receptionist sat me on the chair for a few minutes. Then I went in, and as I walked in and sat down, she said, Sarah, do you know that your dress is open? It had a big long side zip,
Oh no.
full length side zip. And I'm like, oh, no. Looked at it, and that was clearly what that man was looking at. He could see
Right.
my underwear, because it was such a big long zip. I'm like, no, I just had no idea. I was totally unwashed, unkempt, didn't brush my
Yeah.
hair, nothing. So I zipped it up and just talked through what was going on in my head the previous night and what I could do about it.
And what could you do about it?
Well, she just tried to, I don't really remember. I think it was tried to use logic and
Mm.
emotions. And I remember her giving me a stone. It was a polished stone. And she said, I want you to have this. It's my last one. And she said, I want you to hold it and think of the strength within that stone, that rock, how hard it is, how strong it
Mm.
is. And related that to me. She says, you've been through hard times. You've got that strength in you. You just have to dig a bit deeper. But pull this stone out and think about the strength it's got within it, and remind yourself that you've got that strength within you. And I don't remember the rest of the conversation, and I've still got that stone today.
Yeah, I love that so much. Like having something physical as a reminder of our strength that we can just put in our pocket or, carry around with us. That's so beautiful. There's a coach that I worked with, um Denise Duffield Thomas. She's Australian. She's a money coach, actually. But one of the things that she teaches is having anchors, is what she calls them. And so
Yes.
this stone is an anchor, and they don't have to be physical things, but just having just even little notes, around your house to remind you, post-it notes, or changing your passwords to something that will remind you of where you want to be or how you want to feel.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
this is
touch as well,
yes.
touching, fingertips, or touching your chest, or touching your thigh, and anything you can use as an anchor.
Yeah. Yeah. But I love having a stone as an anchor. I'm a big crystal girl. So um
Yes, me
it
too.
just makes sense to me to have a stone as that um anchor to remind you of your strength. Love it.
Yeah, thank you.
So then where did you go from there? When did you start
Uh,
feeling a little bit better?
I'm not sure of the time in between that session with her and when I started to feel better, because every day ran into another day. But I
Mhm.
had to walk our dogs. We had two hours, and they needed to go out morning and evening for a walk. And I used to walk them, and at some point I think it was maybe a year down the line, I started looking out. So my eyes came from inside to outside of me, because I was living in that dark,
Mm-hmm.
deep void and abyss. And suddenly one day I was walking outside with the dogs, and I actually noticed the buds on the trees. It was spring. And I noticed the flowers on the ground. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was the first
Yeah.
time I actually really noticed them. And I looked up, and it was the UK, and there was a lot of grey sky, but there was just this little patch of blue. And I'm like, wow, that's lovely. And then after that, I started looking for things that would light me up, and listening, just hearing children playing in the street, seeing the flowers. There was a stream alongside the path I walked the dogs, just listening to that and watching the bubbles sometimes. And it was intuitive. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. It was
Mm-hmm.
literally several months later when I realized I'd started practicing mindfulness and gratitude together.
Yes.
But I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea what I was doing. I'm like, oh gosh, look at that. That's beautiful. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, how lovely. I'm so pleased that I've seen that. I'm so grateful. And as I look back, I'm like, yes, I was practicing mindfulness and gratitude, and that really helps to lift my mood. And I looked forward to walking the dogs then. And the better I felt, the more I stepped into healing, because until I'd, I'd reached that point and started seeing the world around me, everything was so dark and bleak and black that I was struggling to think and even have conversations. And I remember having just a general conversation. I don't remember what it was, but me and my husband were in the kitchen just talking. And I was saying something. And I went, that, what's that? And he went, you mean the chair? I'm like, yeah, chair. I lost that word. Didn't have that word. Couldn't find it in my vocabulary. Why did I not? I know that's a chair. Why could I
Sure.
not remember that was a chair? And that shocked me. It's like, how can you just lose an everyday word? But looking back, that shows the depth of that darkness that I was in, that I literally couldn't process my thoughts
Mm-hmm.
into vocabulary, let alone think about how I'm going to get better. Because I knew from the off that I would heal this dark depression. The doctor wanted to medicate me, but I didn't want the pills. I'd done that before, and it had literally made me feel like a zombie. Literally, just I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
feel anything. I couldn't feel any emotion, no sadness, but no joy either. So I
Yeah.
said, no, I'm going to heal this myself. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I'm absolutely going to heal this. So as I said, that gratitude and mindfulness, when I realized what I was doing, I spent more time in that state. And then I started meditating, and it's laughable now because I'd never meditated, didn't know what to do. So I sat on the couch with my fingers in a mudra, thumb and middle finger together, going, and all these intrusive thoughts in my mind. Who do you think you are? You're just nobody. You're worthless. Nobody loves you. What are you here for?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, clearly I can't meditate. This is not for me. I cannot do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on because we got internet at the time. This was back in 2012. So I went on the internet and started looking at what I could do to help myself, and found some guided meditations. And at first I'm listening to, I chose a 5-minute one. I thought I can just start slow and move on. Found somebody's voice that I liked, and just initially started looking for peace inside. I just want to feel at peace with myself. And then I can look at maybe feeling at peace in the world around me. And the more I did, the better I felt. And then my husband said, why don't you leave the hospital and set up your own business? And my first thoughts, well, I can't not be a nurse, because, that's who I am. I'm Sarah the nurse. So I did. I set up a business, but I was a nurse entrepreneur. I still had that nursing. And I meditated on becoming an entrepreneur before I'd even started. But not just
Wow.
any entrepreneur. I had to be an award winning, because that was looking for validation and proof that
Hmm.
I have got the ability and the skills. So I did that and actually won a local award in the university, and they put me forward to National Freelancers Day, and I came second in the UK in a freelancers
Wow.
competition. So I'm like, okay, so this is my validation now. I am okay. I can do this. And of course, I'm still on my healing journey, but like way down the path now.
Hmm.
And a friend of mine said, you need to start networking. You need to start going to some groups. I'm like, eek.
Hmm.
Because although I was healing, I wasn't really ready to meet lots of people. I'd got
Yeah.
my
Put yourself
jobs
out
as my
there.
entrepreneur. Yeah, I was doing that as an entrepreneur, subcontracting to other companies through my own company, which was nerve wracking, but I was earning the money doing the work, and the work what was using my nursing skills. So it was just like a bit of retraining. And I did that. But the thought of going to a room full of people and having to mingle and talk to them all and say who I am and what I'm doing. She took me and held my hand, and I literally shook the whole time of the meeting because it was so far out of my comfort zone. But
Hmm.
the thing about healing is we have to step out of our comfort zone. People can
Yes.
support us, but we absolutely have to do it ourselves. Nobody can do it for us. And that is, I think, for me, that was the most challenging part of my healing, was regrowing my comfort zone from like the size of a penny or
Hmm.
non-existent, to try and push those boundaries, those edges of my comfort zone, to grow it, to become that confident person that I used to be. And
Hmm.
every time I did something new, my voice shook, my body shook, and it was so anxiety provoking. But the more I did, the better I got at it.
Yes.
And I say that I think is the most. I don't say difficult and challenge. Don't say difficult and hard, because our subconscious thinks, well, I can't do it if it's difficult or hard. So I work with challenging, because we can work with those challenges. And that
Yes.
really challenged me, really, really challenged me. But I did it. And the more I did it, the better I felt. And eventually I was able to step away from that business, even though I'd won awards, and set up my second business as a coach to help people to do what I'd done and look at their beliefs around health and healing and find their blocks to why they're not healing, why they think they have to have that dis-ease or diagnosis for their lifetime. Because a lot of doctors will say, you
Yeah.
can't heal this, you'll be on pills forever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be that. I'm going to heal this. My body's going to heal it, because that's my new belief. And I did. I healed it, trained as a coach, and moved on.
Amazing. And I know exactly what you mean about those networking meetings. When I first started my business like 13 years ago, that's what you do when you are an entrepreneur and you own your own business. You have to go out there and meet people and build relationships and referrals and things like that. And I think the first networking meeting I went to, I walked in, it was in a restaurant, and I immediately went to the restroom. Just stood in there for like 5 minutes, kind of getting up my nerve, because I walked in and there's 50 people standing around. And I'm like, I don't know any of these people. And so I just went and hid for a little bit and then came out and yeah, it was terrible. The first one, but I
Yeah.
did it. I was like, okay, I went. That was sort of step one. I didn't necessarily talk to a lot of people, but I showed up. And then, it was baby steps from there.
Yeah.
And then eventually you go to different events, and sometimes you have to get up and speak to everybody all at once. Sometimes they're just mingling, one-on-one sort of casual things. But yeah, getting up in front of everybody and saying who I am and what I do, and yeah, voice shaking. But the interesting thing is, I also have lived with depression for many, many years. And so there were some days where I was just like, I can't, like, it was a struggle to get out of bed, but I had this networking thing that I had to go to. So I'd force myself to get up and put on my dress and do up the zipper and, put on the makeup, brush the hair, do the things and go. I'm like, all I have to do is go once I'm there. And usually by the time I got there and I saw familiar faces, and it would totally improve my mood because I had, pushed myself that little bit. And, there are days you can and days you can't. But on the days that you can, it's so worth it to just push yourself out of where you're comfortable, because the reward is that then, like you said, your comfort zone grows and you just, you open yourself up to new and better experiences and opportunities.
Absolutely. And nobody can do it for you. You have to
Mm-hmm.
do it yourself. People can support you, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody can do it for you. And I think I found that the most challenging. And I found a quote by Henry Ford that once it started healing, it really resonated with me. And that is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
Yes.
And that really, I guess, giving me goosebumps. And that really helped me to keep stepping forwards,
Mm-hmm.
to step out of who I was and to become who I was becoming.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, obviously we're talking because we're business owners, and so we do weird things like networking, but if that's not part of your life, it could be anything from, going to church and meeting people there where you have to meet new people and tell them about yourself and let people in also. Or, joining an art class or, anything of that sort. It's kind of all the same. It doesn't really matter what you're doing, just, that you're doing it, and not, the shorter version of that Henry Ford quote is, of course, nothing changes if nothing changes, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And
Yeah.
everything you want is the other side of fear.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that excitement and fear are the same emotion, just one is the positive version
Yes.
and one is the negative version. So if
Yes.
you're feeling
And it
fear, you
all,
can flip it to excitement.
yes,
It's
you
all,
can.
all up in your
Yes.
brain.
Totally. Yes. I'm
Mhm.
excited. I'm excited about what's coming next rather than I'm fearful. As you
Yes.
say, we feel it both the same.
Hmm. I was an expat wife for, I don't know, a good 10 years or so, and we moved to different countries and lived all over the world. And I remember moving to, um I don't even remember where we were living at the time. We were somewhere. And I was talking to a neighbor who had kids the same age, and they had to move across the country. So I must have been in Oregon in the US at the time. And they were like, we have to move, completely to the other side for, husband's work. And she was terrified. And I'm like, having lived my life, I'm like, it's still the same country, but but if you've never done anything like that. And I said, but it's, you can easily flip that fear to excitement. It's a grand adventure. Like, imagine all the new people you're going to meet, all the new restaurants you're going to eat at, all of the new things you're going to see and experience. And she was like, oh, I never thought of it that way before, because all she knew was like, everything's going to be different, and I've never experienced that before. And how's it going to be? And I'm like, well, just imagine all of the possibilities and opportunities. And she was like, wow, yes, you know,
Yeah.
it's still going to be different, but
Yeah.
it could also be exciting.
And it's a mindset shift, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you, how did you go through that? What sorts of things did you do? You mentioned meditation, for your own healing. What other things did you do?
So I started with the mindfulness and gratitude and then went on to meditation. And then I started looking on the internet at what people were doing in their healing. Because I'd done a lot of healing to then. But being in that medical model, the first part of my healing, I started in what I call the physical plane or pillar, which was nutrition, hydration, sleep,
Yes.
exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's initially where my focus was, because in that medical model, that's all I could think about.
Mm-hmm.
That's health and healing, right? Just that. But actually, as I started to heal, I thought, well, there must be other people like me who have believed in doctors, medicines, and hospitals and literally couldn't see anything else outside of their visor, if you like, their scope of awareness. So I thought I'll write a book of my own healing, because I'd healed eczema, psoriasis, acid reflux, candida, PTSD, underactive thyroid, depression, suicidal thoughts, and burned out adrenal glands. Oh, and chronic pain. So I'd healed
Wow.
all of that on my
Yeah.
journey, and thought, well, let me write about it to show people how I've healed that, to help them to understand, because I would have read that book to help
Mm-hmm.
open my mind up. So I started writing it, and then I had this little voice in my head, you're not an author. Who do you think you are? You're not
Mm-hmm.
worthy. So I put it away on my computer for 5 years.
Oh.
5 years, yeah. And then one day I just woke up. I'm like, I've got to finish this book, and I've got to put other people in it, and other diseases and health problems. So I reached out on the internet. 74 people lots of people came back to me, but 74 came back to me and wrote their story within the time frame that I asked for. And people had healed ALS and multiple sclerosis
Wow.
and cancer and Lyme and so many different autoimmune and stroke and endometriosis and sensitivities. And they all wrote about what they did and how they healed, which helped me to learn further about what healing involves. And I realized through writing my book, reading all these beautiful stories from people, my own healing and my coaching training, I actually found that there's 4 pillars that we need to address to stay healthy, but also to heal. And that's the physical, as I mentioned earlier. Then there's the mental, which includes the mindfulness, the gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
the meditation. And then there's the spiritual, which I found doing the meditation, which basically means coming back to that voice inside of us. We've
Yes.
all got that little voice. Some people call it intuition, others call it higher wisdom, some people call it God or the universe or the angels. The name is irrelevant, but we
Mm-hmm.
have to come back inside of us and listen. And it's such a little voice. Our ego will shout, but our
Yes.
intuition, whatever name you want to give it, is very quiet, matter of fact, and emotionless. And we need to come and reconnect with that. And it wasn't until I did my coach training that I came across the emotional pillar. And that really, we have to look at who is around us, what kind of people are
Mm-hmm.
around us. Are they draining our energy, or are they filling us up and making us happy? But we also have to look at our past, what's happened in our past, and we have to heal that. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
best way is forgiveness and letting go, but not
Yes.
everybody can get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So for some people, it's more of accepting what's happened, because we can't change it. No matter how much hatred and grief we hold, we cannot change what's happened, but we can reframe it to come to a place of acceptance on a neutral emotional level. If we can't get to that forgiveness, the next best thing is acceptance in that neutrality. And when we can do that and address all those 4 pillars, we can stay healthy, but we can also heal. It works for both, to
Yes.
avoid disease, but to heal disease too. Nearly spoke in Spanish then. So all of those need addressing, and most of us tend to, like I did, just look at that physical, the nourishment, the hydration,
Mm-hmm.
the exercise, and the sleep. But we have to deal with our mind, deal with our emotions, and come back to that voice inside of us that's there for us to help us and support us on our journey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 1,000%. I used to do a lot of work with cancer patients in my Reiki practice. And, people would come in. Of course, they've met lots of other people who have cancer. And they're like, yeah, this guy, and they were always so surprised. He ate well and exercised and drank lots of water and slept. Like, all the physical stuff he was doing really good, but then he still got cancer. And it's like, well, yeah, but what was his emotional life like? What past traumas did he have that he was still holding and carrying around with him? Like, there's so much more to it. But
Yes.
so many of us just focus on that physical aspect, which is great. We do need to do that, but there are those other layers that are less visible that we
Yes,
really need to, until they
absolutely.
make themselves really
Oh,
visible
yes.
themselves. But yeah.
And at the end of the day, I've come to realize that the symptoms that we have, because I'm not a lover of diagnoses, because when you accept a diagnosis, it's like installing a computer program in your mind. And with that diagnosis, then comes a set of beliefs. I'm going to be on this pill and that pill, and have pain and degrade, and maybe be in a wheelchair, maybe become bedbound, and my life's going to be cut short. And all these beliefs tie into that diagnosis. Whereas
Mhm.
if we look at the symptoms that we've got, we can work with them. And the symptoms are literally our subconscious mind throwing out messages through our body. And our job is to understand what those messages are and to decipher them. And when we
Mhm.
can do that, we can work with the symptoms and heal them.
Yes. Yeah. There's a really great book by Louise Hay. I'm sure you must know of it, called You Can Heal Your Life.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, she was sort of the founder of the mind body connection, or the spiritual physical connection. And
Metaphysics.
yeah, and she has the book is fascinating to read, but in the back she has this really great chart that sort of, like, you look up, I have, whatever symptom, and she'll tell you sort of what the underlying cause of that symptom is. If you have leg pain, it means that you're struggling with moving forward in your life. That may or may not be true. I
Absolutely.
just made that up, but it's sort
Yeah,
of
it
stuff
is.
like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it's amazing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
can
She was
really,
one of the
really
first
help.
books I read in my coaching
Hmm.
course.
Yeah.
I loved
Yeah.
it.
Yes. Beautiful. Yeah. It's it's all connected. We are all connected. The whole body, I can't talk today. Body, mind, spirit
Spirit.
connection. It's
Yeah.
we're all those things, and we always have to heal all the things in order to feel better.
Together holistically. Yeah.
Yes. What um what would you tell somebody who is, in that place that you were when you were ironing and going through your dark night of the soul? What would you tell somebody who's experiencing that?
Please reach out. Please. There is so many people wanting to help you. We don't really deeply want to take our life. We just want the pain to stop.
Hmm.
And if we take our life, we're passing that pain on to other people. Just please reach out to anybody that you feel safe with, whether it's a family member, a counsellor, a doctor, a therapist. It doesn't matter, a best friend, somebody with no knowledge, a stranger. Reach out. There is help available. Don't suffer on your own.
Yes. Yes. I echo that as well. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story and your wisdom with us. I appreciate you.
Thank you too, Janet. I appreciate you.
Thank you for listening. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant for more, and that it really does get better. If you are in crisis, there are numbers that you can call or text to get the help that you need. That information for Canada and the US is in the description below each episode. If you are in immediate crisis, please call 911. We love you, and I hope you'll listen again.